Hello and welcome. I'm Homer Kraut. This is Approaches and Techniques, the second part, Tools for the Pursuit of Excellence. What we're going to do is look at approaches, techniques, models, and tools that have the potential to be of some benefit to you and or your organization. We will look at and evaluate these both from a holistic as well as a detailed perspective, and you should do the same as we go through the lecture. Holistic in the sense of, can these models be applied to our organization or to you as a whole, or are there parts of the models, the tools, the techniques that may be of individual use to you as you go through the processes? It is not necessary to adopt or adapt a model in its entirety. You can pick and choose, you can select, and you can use parts of any model. There will always be another great best model. What you need to do is to select the tools, models, and approaches that best fit you and your organization. Business excellence model. We will spend some time talking about these. The first is a business excellence model. Second is value management. We will talk about lean production, and we will talk about target cost management. Business excellence is how do you do the overall excellence of your business. Value management deals with increasing the value of your product. Lean production revolves around decreasing production cost and moving towards higher productivity. TCM, target cost management, looks at a product and deals with it from purely a cost perspective. We will also look at knowledge management. Knowledge management allows you to access a body of knowledge that permits you to take advantage of previously accomplished tasks, information that's already available, and to use that as part of your ongoing operations. Think of this as not reinventing the wheel. It allows you to take advantage of processes, products, and information already available. Supporting models. We'll take a look at a few models that in toto or in part support you in the movement towards a product in your business. Finally, we'll take a look at an approach for you, your approach. How will these support you in your business efforts, and what sort of approach should you take? The business excellence model. This focuses on results, customers, leadership, process management involving people, among other issues. We'll take a look at this model in some detail. The business excellence model focuses on excellence with the following fundamentals. Results oriented, focus on achieving results. What you're doing is looking at requirements, making sure that you understand the detailed requirements, and ensuring that your product meets those specific requirements. This is an overarching principle. If you get sidetracked, if you get moved off of your requirements, then it's possible that the results will be something that was unintended. Customer focus, sustain customer value. You need to continually think of what the customer wants over time. If you're not providing the customer what they think they need or meeting their perceptions or their needs, then you'll lose them. They'll move to another product or another company. You need to manage both the product and expectations from a customer's perspective. It needs to meet, or your product needs to meet, the stated value or better. It certainly does not hurt to always improve a product or meet better than stated needs. You should consider improving value over time. However, there's a return on investment. At some point, you may want to release or design and develop another product, and at some point, improving a current product is cost more than it's worth. Leadership, excellent and visionary. You'll be very, very fortunate to have a visionary leader. Excellent leaders are those that you find mostly in day-to-day operations where companies have good production. A visionary leader is one that's able to make leaps in thought processes and leaps in development of a product. There are very few of those. But good leaders, excellent leaders, you find in all types and throughout your organizations. Management by process, based decisions, or based informed decisions on facts. You must, as you move through a process, collect data, collect information, and you must base decisions on those facts. Too often, we find ourselves making decisions based on a lack of information, faulty information, or in some cases, on emotions. The end result of any of those types of decisions is generally disastrous. If not disastrous, then it certainly does not increase productivity or increase value or provide a profit over time. People involvement involve and develop personnel. This is an interesting area and one that we often overlook or forget. We need to ask for people's input. Even those individuals that are on a product line should have an opportunity to provide input. We need to involve people in our organization as teams by brainstorming, by asking for their input in generally both formal and informal sessions. And we need to provide support. Are there things that you can do to support your personnel? Some research would tend to allow us to believe that money is not the driving factor in most organizations. It's a combination of money along with a supportive environment and things that you normally wouldn't find in another company. For example, daycare may be a thing that you'd find in a company that would entice people to stay. The other thing is that you need to train personnel. You need to keep them trained. So you should have both an informal and a formal training program. When an individual comes to a company, you need to start training them on what they're to do. And at some point, as they move into the company and stay with you longer, you should provide formal training for them. And this is both at the, if you will, at lower worker level, at the management level, and at the leadership level. Maintain competitiveness. You need to continually ensure that what you're producing or providing is competitive to the market today. Very, very good example of this is Coca-Cola. Coke recently went back to Coke Classic labeling because people that were buying Coke or people that liked Coke would not buy the new type of Coke labeling. And that is a Coke, or at least a company's desire, need, or drive to maintain competitiveness. Develop partnerships adding value. In an earlier session, we talked about benchmarking, and this is where partnerships are invaluable. What you do is you gain expertise from working with another company. It increases your visibility. It allows you to increase your product or develop or refine what you're doing for your products. And it takes advantage of an extremely larger knowledge base. Social responsibility, contribute to society. This is another area that we often forget. We tend to think of this as financial driven, but it is not necessarily. As an organization, as a company, you are part of a society. And it doesn't mean that you have to go out and contribute globally, but you can look outside the walls of your building, your plant, your organization. Are there things that you can do in the local community that will support their efforts and create a positive environment or a positive attitude towards your company. This is not necessarily profit-oriented. However, it supports the visions of your company and it supports you as part of the local community. We'll take a quick look at this diagram. We talk about enablers, those things that allow you to get results. They assist in developing outcomes towards a product which is a result. On the bottom of the chart, we have innovation and learning. And innovation and learning should start from the bottom and move up to the top. We have leadership. We have people involved in the company. We have policy and strategy. Everyone should understand what the policy and strategy is for the company. We have partnerships and resources. We have processes that move us towards a product or an output. We have people that are involved in the results. We have customers that are involved in the results. And we have results that impact on society. The end result is that we have a product that provides some sort of key performance or key product input to a customer. The next model is value management. This is a team or job plan approach. You should have noted by now that there are many models for improving a process or a product, and there are many areas of overlap. In general, different models focus on different aspects of jobs and job production, organizations, and outputs. They generally try to do the same thing. They're trying to allow you to increase the bottom line or ensure that you maintain profitability for a company. Team-based approach, enhancing value. First of all, you need to identify your priorities. You need to develop goals. You need to develop objectives. You need to evaluate the value of what you're doing to the company. And you need to look at the cost. And as you identify priorities, you must place a weight on them. So it may be that cost will have a significant impact on one type of priority, where another type of priority will have more impact on the objectives and the goals of the company. Once you've identified your priorities, what you should do is identify projects that satisfy or meet the needs of those priorities. The projects need to fall within the bounds of what you've already identified. After identifying the projects, you begin to perform projects. What you need to do again is to focus on the value of these products or projects as they support the priorities. And it may be that when you identify, let's say you identify 10 projects, and when you get to the performing phase, you find that you can only satisfy 3 of those based on your priorities that are established. This approach focuses on the true value of products or services. This overall uses a job plan approach. There's a planning phase, an information gathering and analysis phase. This generally follows the life cycle management of a product. In the analysis, you should gather statistical information and data. You should look at your variables. You should conduct a cost analysis, feasibility analysis, a cost-benefit analysis, an impact analysis, and other types of analyses that you may need for your company that will give you information as to whether this particular product or what service you're providing by the organization is profitable. You need to create a model for the product that you're attempting to provide. You need to design based on requirements already collected. You need to develop, and then you need to evaluate what you have done. Does it, in fact, meet the priorities set out, and does it fall within the parameters of the projects that you asked or trying to do? This particular phase, reporting, is where you do a no-go or a go on projects that you're considering implementing. At this point, you'll make a decision. We'll continue with a project, 2 projects, 3 projects, or maybe not at all. But this is where you may have spent some money in development, but this is where you commit resources to implementing a project. Implement. In this particular phase, you begin to assess what you're doing, implementing the process, continue reevaluating to assure that you have made the right decisions and are moving in the right direction. Follow up. Did it meet the goals? Does it fall within the priorities and parameters that you set? Does it still meet the goals of the project that you started to do? Are there areas that can be improved? What kind of reports do you need out of this? In essence, what you do is go back to your management, your boss, and you say, this particular project has met the goals or not met the goals, and here is the profitability. Lean production. This is a concept of more or less. Now, in a previous lesson, we talked about Six Sigma and Lean Six Sigma. This is not the same thing. This is lean production. It's the concept of taking a current set of operations or a current set of services and trying to figure out how to provide them with less cost. It's a more with less concept. Most of us, when we hear this, assume that we're going to have more work, the same amount of pay, the same amount of hours, and that's how the company makes more profit. That's not necessarily so. There are always elements of an organization and elements of a process that can be streamlined. You can cut time here, you can reduce the amount of raw materials that go into a product, and it may be that if a process has been in place for, say, 10 years, the technology and the way to implement processes may have improved over time. And so you may find that by looking at what you're doing in terms of processing is that you are essentially reducing raw materials, creating more in less time. And the small changes here that reduce or produce the overall more with less concept. Emphasis is on incremental changes over time. You're not looking for giant leaps in progress. What you're looking at is saving a little here, a little there, moving slowly towards a goal where that you will be doing more with less. Seeks to minimize inventory. This is an interesting concept. In general, you hear this called as JIT or JIT, just in time. What would be nice is if you need a particular item, a bolt, nut, screw, or a widget for some sort of a process, that it would miraculously appear exactly when and where you needed it. That does a number of things. It reduces the amount of materials that you have to have on hand. It reduces your storage capacity. It allows you to take advantage of new products with better materials. It reduces the number of products that a supplier has to produce at any one time. It reduces stockpiling. It reduces the amount of supplies that are in a supply chain, e.g. the length of a supply chain. If you are ordering materials or your supplies depend on a country that is thousands of miles away. You're paying for that product to get to where you're located. So JIT, it seeks to minimize inventory just in time. It tends to develop coherency along the value chain. This supports supplies, delivery, storage, distribution, production, and customers. You should logically be able to see a thread, a coherent thread, from start to finish of a product, from where the initial supply part is, a thread all the way to where it's delivered and out through the final product. This also addresses recovery and recycling. In today's world, companies are finding that materials that are byproducts, acids, waste materials, are profitable for the company, and they no longer can dump them or discard them into the environment. So we're finding ways to recover and recycle materials as they move through a manufacturing or a services-based process. This is an area that we've not taken full advantage of, but we're continuing to try and improve in this particular area. Target cost management. Target cost management is an interesting concept. It focuses predominantly on the costs as you move through a process, as you develop, design, implement, put into place, and evaluate a product. It's focused totally on what it costs to do each of those processes. And the thought process is that as you do that, you can reduce costs by focusing on them. There are 5 distinct steps focusing on cost: planning, design, concept design, basic design, detailed design, manufacturing preparation. We'll spend a few minutes on each of these. Planning. There has to be a reason for product development. There has to be a need someplace, or there should be a need someplace that's established. So you can say, I have to design, or we could make a profit developing and designing this product to supply that particular need. And we're all familiar with products that have gone the other way. You design a product, and then you hope that individuals will take and use those. Phones on the market today are an example of that. The iPad is an example for that. Here's a product that was developed, put on the market, and then we decided that we needed it. Normally, products are not developed that way. You look out and see a need, and then you say, okay, we should develop this because we believe that we can make a profit. Once you've decided that you want to develop or design a product, you have to define some basic specifications. What would you like for it to do? What would you like for the outcomes to be? Based on what you would like for a product to do, what the outcomes are, or what needs it meets, you have to go back and look at the requirements. So now we have a product. We have some general guidelines as to what it does, some basic specifications. We develop a targeted cost point and selling price for the product. This is prior to the time that we put it out on the market. So what we're doing is saying, here is a point at which we have to set the cost. Here's the price that we must get for us on the market in order for us to be profitable. Target cost management concept design. Now we define the elements of the product. We've already said, okay, here is a product from a visionary perspective with some basic considerations that we think we can market. Now what we need to do is define the specific elements of that. What we do now is distribute costs to the top elements. So if we have an element that has a product that has 10 elements, we would say these elements are the most important, and we will put an X percent or this percentage of the cost on that particular element. Once we've done that, initial designation of elements within targeted costs. So now we have said, here is what we think a targeted cost will be for this particular product. We have to take these elements within that and say, okay, here are the costs for those. At this point, we develop rough cost estimations. So although we have already said that the cost, we have to sell this for X amount of dollars, now we have to decide what it's going to cost us for the elements in order to develop and produce this particular product. Compare cost estimations with those developed in the planning phase. Now we make a decision as to whether this is a go or no go. If these cost estimations are higher than those that were originally developed, we have to go back and make a determination as to whether they're right or wrong. If they're right, then it appears that the cost to develop this is higher than we can make for a profit. At that point, we would probably drop this. TCM basic design. If we decide to move forward, then what we need to do is distribute cost between top and middle level functions. So now what we're doing is distributing cost sub to the elements we already have. If we say that an element X costs 10 units and it has 3 subs, now we have to decide where that cost for element X is distributed for those subtasks under element X. Remember, we're still trying to manage this within the cost estimation that we've originally developed and that we've agreed to at the end of the last phase. At this point, we create a layout, design, or drawing of a product. We're still in the design phase at this point. We need to determine if the product meets parameters and estimated cost. Please note that in each of these phases, we're looking back to determine the cost of the product. Now, some things that will have an impact on this are things like feasibility. Can this product or this part for a product be produced? But the other question is, can it be produced or acquired within the cost guidelines? Remember, this is a cost-based model. Detailed design. At this point, you do detailed design drawings, prototypes, down to manufacturing level detail. And in some cases, we would do something called rapid prototyping. What we would do is very quickly develop a prototype to see if it met our end needs and still fell within costs. At this point, we are developing detailed cost estimations based on manufacturing level detail. Now we're deciding where all costs are distributed through this particular process. This is where we hope that there are no surprises. This should still fall within the cost that we've estimated for this product over time within the elements we defined. Prepare for manufacturing. The target is taken within the constraints of targeted cost. There's an integration of designers, manufacturers, staff, sales, and marketing takes place. It should be noted that this is an iterative process, that during each phase we go back to look to ensure that we're still within the cost bounds. Remember, this is a cost-based proposal, a cost-based model. You generally do not find this in industry today, but there are industries that are based on manufacturing products and have a long chain of manufacturing and a long supply chain do this to make sure that they're profitable and they can maintain their value over time. Knowledge management. This concept has been around for a long time. You have individuals within your organization that are extremely knowledgeable. And sometimes when you have a question that stumps everyone else, you go to them and ask a question. What we've done is we've expanded that body of knowledge by using technology. We've taken that individual's knowledge, or attempted to, and we've put it into a database. And we have structured it as such that we can go to that data system and ask questions and get that information out of it. It's a collection of accessible businesses, knowledge that support businesses. It also supports individuals. Most of us have gone out to the web and asked questions, done searches. What you're doing is bouncing your question against a very large knowledge base. Addresses organizational issues of adaptation, survival, competence in the face of change. It's an information pool. It assists in relooks, expansion, helps you to evaluate competitiveness, and it helps you to establish your competitive level. It allows you also to monitor change in a global environment. You can also use the information to impact on your product. It embodies organizational processes through a combination of information processing and the creative and innovative capacity of employees. What we're doing is collecting a body of knowledge, or a body of expert knowledge, and making it available to everyone. I need to point out here that data and knowledge that you collect for your company and use is generally considered close hold or private knowledge. Very seldom do companies release or distribute internal knowledge-based systems. It uses a combination of corporate knowledge and technology. It's a concept of accessing information when and where needed to make improvement. You can use external or expert data to impact on internal improvements. Knowledge management. This is an extremely powerful tool, and one that is becoming more and more into the front of organizations and what they do to collect information and to make decisions. It essentially allows you to capitalize on services, products, and information that has already been collected, that's in the market today, and in general, this is supported through a technology distributed network. Supporting models. Waterfall model provides for a concept of iterative improvement. ADDIE, a model of particular interest to online training and education. Analysis, design, development, implementation, and evaluation. We'll come back and talk about these briefly in a minute. Life cycle models. There are a number of life cycle models available, and they all, for the most part, are models that take you through the start, through the life cycle of a model or of a product. These stay in existence until a product is taken off the market. They include things like parts, supply distribution, maintenance over time, all part of a life cycle. Example of a waterfall model. As I noted, it's an iterative approach to improving processes. We've already talked about this in some cases where this has been used in other frequently. Step one, you look at it, as you move to step two, and you start on step two, you go back to step number one, and you refine what you did in step number one as it has an impact on step number two. And the same is to step number three, you go back to step number two. When you first start this process, you may find that in going from step one to step two, there are a large number of things that you need to improve by going back to step one to come back into step two. But as you move forward in the process, these should become smaller and smaller as you refine your thoughts and your processes. ADDIE: analysis, design, develop, implement, and evaluate. This model is generally applied to the development of online training and instruction. This is very interesting. This is an adaptation of one of the other life cycle models and is used by universities to develop their online training to some extent. It allows you to analyze, design, develop, implement, and evaluate, and this particular model allows you for rapid development. So you could push this model fairly quickly and from start to finish, design, implement, and have online a course in a shorter period of time than by using one of the other life cycle models. At this point, it is a universally accepted model, and it allows for full cycle development from start to finish of a product. Life cycle models. These consist of feasibility studies, requirements analysis, design, development, implementation, evaluation, and life cycle sustainment. In general, these are extremely detailed and move forward in a very structured fashion. Feasibility studies is where you decide, can I do this, and will it generally fall within cost parameters. The requirements, you define very narrowly what requirements are. You design against those requirements. You develop against the design. You implement. You evaluate once it's implemented. And then you move into life cycle sustainment. This is where you supply parts, information, training, support over time until the end of the product. And at this point, you may also say, we are only going to support this particular product through X amount of years. This is a life cycle model. These particular models are generally used for the development of large and complex systems. You generally find these in large organizations with a team or a staff that implements them, and in general, these could be separate departments. Your approach. Which approach is best for you? Well, what do you produce? What or where is your customer base? How large is your company? Is it a large or a small? Are you an established or a startup company? What are your short and long range objectives? These are all things you need to consider. Starting an evaluation. See Appendix 1, Self-Assessment Questionnaire, ABC Benchmarking Reference. And this is a simple tool that introduces benchmarking. This will provide a solid foundation for you to move forward. What we've done is review additional approaches and techniques. It is necessary that you determine the best approach and techniques that will assist in meeting your company needs. If you have additional questions or need additional information, please visit the university website.